You argue that Changpeng Zhao's move to step down from his role as CEO of Binance is a strong signal of the maturity of the crypto market and shows that even those who operate outside certain parameters will be held accountable. You also argue that the crypto exchange can flourish even more now. Why do you think that is, and what else do you think this signifies?
Absolutely. So I definitely think it is a strong signal for the crypto markets that the issue is being resolved and that CZ is being held accountable. Binance is one of the largest exchanges, it is the largest exchange in the space, and they grew very rapidly. And when you are growing that rapidly and in a space where there's a lot of innovation, it's oftentimes the rules are a little unclear. And still, it seems like Binance has violated some of those rules and they're being held accountable. And that's a good thing. We want the crypto market to be held to the same standards as every other financial market. The crypto market has operated a bit like a wild, wild west in the past. But as we see more institutional capital coming, more sophisticated investors, more regulatory action, it's going to become more like a normal market. And that's good for investors and that's good for the projects that are receiving funding through this process. As far as the transition to Richard Teng, that is hugely optimistic, I think, for Binance. He is a very well-respected leader. He has a very strong regulatory background, having worked with the Monetary Authority of Singapore, having worked in Abu Dhabi. At this point, the largest challenge facing Binance is regulatory, and he is someone who spent his entire life innovating in the regulatory space. So good for Binance and good for the industry as a whole.
So it sounds like you think Binance will survive after its settlement with U.S. officials. I mean, Bernstein put out a research report last week arguing that Binance will remain the dominant crypto exchange internationally, despite the outflows following the settlement here in the U.S., and that Binance's reputation with retail customers outside of the U.S. has remained strong. Do you agree with that assessment?
I agree with that assessment completely. But if we look at the outflows from Binance over the last few days, they've been quite minor in the scale of things, a few percentage. And, you know, a few percentage of Binance means huge things for some other players in the space. You know, Uniswap and decentralized exchanges are going to grow as a result of this. And that is also positive long-term for the crypto community. But Binance itself, there's no reason to think they'll be anything other than fine. They have a very strong reputation and are still the greatest source of liquidity in the crypto markets.
I spoke with CoreDAO contributor Rich Rines last week, and he argued that the Binance settlement is a, quote, win for the exchange and the crypto industry. Do you agree with those statements?
It's certainly a win for the crypto industry. The crypto industry is filled with legitimate, law-abiding players that have wanted to do the right things by regulations, and we want to work with partners that are doing the right things by regulations. And so for Binance to come further into compliance means that a lot of players in the crypto industry will be more comfortable doing things with them. And it means that greater regulation, again, is good for institutional capital, which is good for the crypto industry. As for whether it's a win for Binance individually, I'm sure they would prefer not to pay fines. I am sure CZ would prefer not to have as much time in court as he has. But overall, I think long term, it's going to just increase the strength of Binance.
What was most striking to you from this Binance settlement, and what do you think is next for the crypto industry? Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong told CNBC yesterday that the crypto industry can finally close the chapter on a litany of scandals and problems after Binance was hit with that historic settlement by the U.S. Department of Justice. Do you agree?
I do agree. I think that this is a significant turning point for the crypto industry. Binance, for a very long time, has been the massive player that's done the least to be regulatory compliant. And so for them to be changing their stance, and to be clear, they have been changing their stance over the last few years. But for them to come even further in line and get this matter settled and stop having, no offense, the headlines about it, like over time, this is all things that are positive for the crypto industry, right? We want an industry that is making headlines because of the innovation happening in the space, not because of possibly bad actors and what they did in the past. So it's an opportunity to move forward past that.
So what do you think is next for crypto markets? Last time we spoke was in September. That's when you said you expected to get really strong price action in Q4 of this year and especially early next year. And here we are seeing crypto prices move higher. So I got to say, so far, your forecast has come to fruition. What do you think is behind the recent price action? And do you still think prices will continue to move higher?
Thank you. And I do. I think we are still early on in that bull cycle. We've seen over 100% growth of last year, and crypto's an exciting asset class where I can say that's kind of a tame growth year. So I think that we're going to see even higher growth in the future. And I think it's driven by a number of things. This regulatory clarity aspect is certainly one of them. So this helps pave the way for that growth. And then also, I think that we are seeing ETFs in the US become quite imminent. I expect to see those approved within the next quarter or so, if not sooner. And I think that is a massive potential influx of capital for the crypto space. And then I also think we're seeing the growth of decentralized finance. Decentralized finance has become more and more sophisticated every year. And this year, they are as competitive and as interesting as centralized exchanges are. And they do that without the risk of trust in any person because it's all code. So I think that the industry is continuing to innovate. I think that there is strong price pressure, both from a fundamentals perspective in terms of the growth from ETFs and regulatory. And I think that there is strong technical analysis reasons and historical cycle reasons to say we're just beginning. I think, barring any unusual events, I think next year is going to be better than this one.
Well, it certainly will be interesting to see if that forecast also comes to fruition. But last week, we also learned about the SEC's lawsuit against Kraken for allegedly operating an unregistered platform. And Bittrex Global announced it's halting trading operations globally next week. That development, of course, comes more than 7 months after the crypto exchange shut down its US platform due to the regulatory environment. What does that signal to you? And do you think we will see a lot more shutdowns and legal action against crypto companies next year?
I think we are going to continue to see active investigation and pursuit of crypto companies that are operating outside of the guidelines. I think in some cases, like for Kraken, it was very hard for them to know how to register and what the guidelines are. And we've seen even Coinbase have a similar issue in the past, and they put more effort towards regulatory compliance probably than anyone. So I'm not so concerned that Kraken especially is having trouble from a regulatory perspective in terms of registering. I do think the accusations that they were commingling funds are much more serious. And I think that if that's the case, that needs to be exposed and that needs to stop because that is unacceptable for exchanges in any industry. But in general, right, I mean, I think that the more companies that are forced to come into compliance, the better. And, I think most companies are going to do everything they can to comply. And I think that the SEC and the lawmakers and the CFTC can all make this a lot easier by being very, very clear on what those rules are, because most of these businesses will follow them. It just needs to be a clear path.
So, what can we expect from AltTab Capital in 2024? Your crypto hedge fund launched an office in London this year. And last time we spoke, you noted that the lack of regulatory clarity here contributed to the move. So, can we see more expansion internationally from AltTab Capital?
I think so. We are actively looking at opening a Singapore office as well. And so I do expect that we will continue to expand internationally. And we are also positioned very aggressively because we feel that this is the turning point for the crypto markets for the next couple of years. So from our perspective, this is an opportunity for great growth in the markets, and we are going to be expanding both our physical footprint and the way we invest.
Good luck, Greg Moritz, co-founder and COO at crypto hedge fund AltTab Capital. We will see if your forecasts come to fruition once again. And thank you for your insight on all those crypto headlines.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure, Talia.